Welcome to the Guiding Light 901 online podcast. Today we're diving deep into Guiding Light Workbook for Alcoholics Anonymous. Have you had a chance to check this workbook out?
I have. It's really interesting how it takes those 12 steps. You know, the traditional ones.
Yeah.
And adds all these questions and prompts. It makes it so personal.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It does feel like a roadmap, your own personalized roadmap
Exactly.
through recovery.
It's not just reading about the steps. It makes you really think about them.
Yeah.
And connect them back to your own life. That's what's so cool.
That's what we want to look at today. How this workbook uses the steps, all 12 of them, to help people reflect, take action, and grow spiritually. It's powerful stuff.
It is, absolutely. It's like you're having a conversation with the book.
Yeah.
And you come away with a much deeper understanding of yourself.
I love that. So, step 1, admitting powerlessness over alcohol. That's a big one right out of the gate.
Huge.
The workbook really gets you thinking about it. There's this one question it asks, have you admitted you are not like other people who can drink? That one hit me hard.
It's tough to face that for a lot of people. That question cuts through years of denial. You're forced to admit, okay, my relationship with alcohol, it's different. It's not normal.
Right. And that's something they talk about in the big book, too. That whole concept of abnormal drinking. It's not just enjoying a drink socially.
No. It takes over. It becomes an obsession.
And then things start to spiral.
Yeah.
Step 1 calls it unmanageability.
Your life's a mess.
Exactly. You feel out of control. The workbook gives this example. Borrowing money to buy more alcohol. Have you ever done things like that?
Yeah. I think a lot of us have in those days.
Things you never thought you'd do.
Right.
It's scary to look back and see those patterns, but it's also a wake-up call.
Definitely.
Yeah.
And that's what leads to step 2, coming to believe in a power greater than ourselves.
Okay, so let's talk about this higher power idea. The workbook defines insanity as doing the same thing over and over and expecting different results.
Oh, yeah. The classic definition.
But then it takes it further. It asks you to think about your own life. Like, what are some examples of how my life became insane?
Whoa. It makes you stop and think.
It does.
It's like, okay, where do I even begin? It forces you to really examine the ways your life's gotten out of hand, the consequences of your choices.
Yeah. And in that moment, the possibility of a power greater than yourself starts to make sense.
It's like a glimmer of hope.
Right. A power that can help you get back to sanity. What I find interesting is the workbook doesn't tell you what that higher power should be. It asks you about your own understanding of God. It lets you explore it in your own way.
That's really important. It's not about forcing a belief on anyone.
And it recognizes turning your will and life over to a higher power. That's not an overnight thing.
Yeah, it's a process.
What are your thoughts on that?
I think it's really smart to surrender control to something you may not fully understand. That's a huge leap of faith.
It is.
It takes time, a willingness to be open to a new way of thinking and being.
You're testing the waters.
Exactly.
Before you jump in.
Which brings us to steps 4 and 5. The moral inventory and acceptance.
This is where it gets real.
Yeah.
The workbook stresses honesty.
And being thorough.
It even suggests writing everything down.
Putting pen to paper. It makes it more concrete, more impactful somehow.
Like you're really facing yourself.
Right. Looking at the good and the bad.
The workbook guides you through that, examining your strengths and weaknesses. And then it goes deeper, into resentments. It's not just about who you resent, but how those resentments have affected you. There's a powerful example about resenting your employer and how that can mess with your self-esteem, your relationships, your sense of security. Have you ever noticed that? How holding on to resentment can really impact your life.
Oh, absolutely. Resentment is like a poison. It affects everything, not just the person you're resenting.
It weighs you down.
It keeps you stuck.
And that's why step 5 is so crucial. Admitting your wrongs to God, to yourself, and to another human being. The workbook talks about trust, letting go of those secrets that keep you trapped in shame and guilt.
It's freeing to finally acknowledge the harm you've caused, to take responsibility.
If this step feels scary, remember you're not alone. There are resources out there, like on AGL901.com, that can help guide you.
It's a great resource.
Okay, so we've faced our past, admitted our wrongs. Now we move on to step 6, becoming ready to have God remove these defects of character.
This is where the real work begins.
This is it.
The workbook quotes the 12 steps and 12 traditions here. It calls this the step that separates the men from the boys.
Wow.
It's not just about seeing your flaws. It's about surrendering them, being open to change, letting go of the things that have been holding you back, all those negative patterns and behaviors that have been running the show
for way too long.
Yeah.
And the workbook gives some examples of these defects: anger, selfishness, fear, self-pity. I mean, who hasn't struggled with those?
We've all been there.
At some point.
It's part of being human. And the workbook suggests that these defects, they often come from this self-centered fear, this constant worry about losing what we have or not getting what we want.
It's like this underlying sense of lack.
Exactly.
And it drives so many of our actions.
It's powerful stuff.
It really connects the dots, showing how these different defects are all kind of intertwined.
Yeah. And when you see those connections, when you understand the root causes, it makes it easier to approach step 7, humbly asking God to remove our shortcomings.
There's such a sense of relief in that step.
Oh, yeah.
Like after all that introspection,
yeah,
all that self-examination, you can finally let go.
You don't have to carry the weight of it all yourself.
Exactly.
The workbook talks about how this self-centered fear leads us to live on a basis of unsatisfied demands.
Always wanting more.
Yeah. Always craving something we don't have.
It's a recipe for frustration.
And resentment.
You're never satisfied.
You never feel like enough.
It's exhausting.
And step 7 offers an alternative. It invites us to shift our focus from what we lack to what we have, to be grateful for what's right in front of us.
It's a subtle shift.
But it's powerful.
Instead of chasing after something, you can finally stop and appreciate what's already there.
Exactly. And that shifting perspective leads us to steps 8 and 9, making amends and moving forward.
These steps feel so concrete. It's about taking action
to repair the harm we've caused.
The workbook gives this example about harming an employer because of substance use. I think that's something a lot of people can relate to.
Absolutely.
It shows that amends aren't just about personal relationships. They affect every area of our lives.
It's about acknowledging the consequences of our actions and taking responsibility.
But the workbook also cautions us about the potential pitfalls of making amends. Like, our good intentions could actually cause more harm.
It's a delicate balance.
We have to be careful and really think things through.
Amends aren't about forcing forgiveness. They're about sincerely trying to make things right.
And if you're not sure how to navigate that, the workbook encourages us to seek guidance, from a sponsor, a therapist,
or a support group.
There are also online resources like AGL911.com.
Those can be incredibly helpful.
Yeah. Especially when you're dealing with something as complex as making amends.
Reaching out for help is a good thing.
It shows strength.
It shows commitment to your recovery.
Okay. So now we're moving into steps 10, 11, and 12. And the focus shifts to the ongoing nature of recovery. This isn't a one-time fix.
No, it's a lifelong process.
Of self-reflection, spiritual connection, and service to others.
It's about finding a new way of life.
A life grounded in honesty,
humility,
connection.
Exactly.
So step 10, it's all about continuing that self-reflection, admitting wrongs as soon as you become aware of them, like taking a daily moral inventory. The workbook gives this simple example about needing to apologize for cursing.
Little slip-ups, they still matter.
Yeah. It's about staying vigilant.
Not letting old patterns creep back in.
It's not about being perfect.
It's about recognizing our imperfections and addressing them honestly.
It's a constant process of learning and growing.
Exactly.
And then step 11, it reminds us we don't have to do this alone. Seek God's will through prayer and meditation.
Connect with your higher power on a daily basis.
It's powerful stuff.
Surrendering your will. Recognizing that you don't have all the answers.
You open yourself up to guidance.
To wisdom, to strength.
It's like having this constant source of support.
Guiding you through life's challenges.
And that connection. It empowers you to carry the message to others. Like step 12 talks about
sharing what you've learned
with people who are still struggling.
Offering them hope.
The workbook talks about taking the AA message into prisons. That's so powerful.
It shows that recovery is possible anywhere, under any circumstances.
It's a message of hope, of possibility.
It's about recognizing our shared humanity.
We're all in this together.
And by sharing our stories, by supporting each other, we can heal.
As individuals.
And as a community.
And that brings us to a crucial point.
Recovery is not a destination. It's a journey.
It really is.
It's not about reaching some finish line.
No. It's about constant growth. Even after working through all 12 steps, there's always more to learn. more to discover about yourself.
About your relationship with your higher power.
Exactly.
And what's so cool is that it's not about being perfect.
Right.
It's about those imperfections, those stumbles along the way. That's where the real growth happens.
So you're saying, even when we make mistakes,
even when we fall short,
it's not a failure.
it's an opportunity
To course correct.
to keep moving forward.
Exactly.
The 12 steps. They give us a way to handle those bumps in the road
They're tools
for self-reflection,
for connecting with your higher power.
for getting support from others.
And the more you use these tools, the more natural they become,
Like a compass,
guiding you towards a better life.
a more fulfilling life.
So think about this. How can you make these principles part of your everyday life, even after you've worked through all the steps?
It's about taking responsibility.
The workbook shows us the way.
But it's up to us to put it into practice.
It's like they give you this toolbox,
Full of amazing tools.
but you got to learn how to use them.
Exactly.
And as you get better at using them,
Yet,
you start to feel more empowered
you realize you have the power to change.
to create the life you want.
And remember, there's help out there if you need it.
Like sponsors, therapists, support groups,
Online communities,
like AGL911.com.
connecting with others. It's so important
It makes all the difference
to know you're not alone.
to know there are people who understand. So to wrap up our deep dive into a Guiding Light workbook, I think we could both agree it's a really valuable resource.
It offers such a powerful and insightful approach to the 12 steps.
It makes you think.
It makes you feel
It encourages you to really dig deep.
and find your own path to recovery.
And it reminds us, recovery is a journey
A lifelong journey.
of growth and transformation.
I want to leave you with this as you continue on this journey. Remember, you have the power to create a life filled with meaning, purpose, and joy.
You have the tools,
You have the support.
and you have the strength within you.
Thank you for joining us.
On the A Guiding Light 911 online podcast, we hope this deep dive has been helpful
And inspiring.
on your own recovery journey.